Mr. Reitz, first of all, welcome to Tyler. How's it feel to be here?
It feels great to be in Tyler. I've spent the past several days in Central and South Texas, and when I finally got up to Northeast Texas, I opened my car door, and it's like 20 degrees colder up here still. So,
And a lot more trees.
a lot more trees. I appreciate all that. Yeah.
Well, it is quite nice. But you're a Republican candidate for Texas Attorney General. Let's go over a bit of your history.
Sure.
You've worked as Chief of Staff to Senator Ted Cruz and Attorney General Ken Paxton's office as Deputy Attorney General for Legal Strategy and in the Department of Justice under the Trump administration.
That's right.
Why run for Texas Attorney General?
Well, look, I believe that we're in a battle for the soul of our state and our nation. And I know from personal experience in all of those positions you just listed that the primary arena in which we are fighting the dark forces of the left is the justice system. And so this is something that President Trump ran on. It's something that he won on. And as one of his very first orders of business, he named me to the senior executive ranks of his Justice Department. And when he did, he said, Aaron Reitz is a true MAGA attorney and a warrior for the Constitution. And that's because of my background leading legal troops into legal combat to deliver legal victories for the state of Texas. With Paxton now pursuing the United States Senate, we are at a critical transition point. Are we going to get an attorney general to succeed him that is capable of keeping up the fight, keeping his foot on the gas, or are we going to miss a beat? Are we going to go backwards? This is a major reason why Paxton has endorsed me to succeed him with that knowledge that, hey, we got to keep up the fight.
Talk to me. What would you say are your biggest priorities if elected to be the state's next top lawyer?
You know, the theme of my campaign is partnering with the Trump administration to advance the America First law and order agenda. We have an ally in the White House right now. The first 2 years of my 4-year term is going to have President Trump in office. In the middle of my 4-year term, there's going to be a presidential election. Now, God forbid a Democrat wins the White House, but if they do, the Texas AG has got to be able to go to war against that future Democratic administration. Nobody better suited to do that than me. When I was Paxton's deputy, I sued the 46th president, that's autopen Joe Biden. I sued the 46th president 46 times. I won 85% of those cases. But coming back to my first 2 years, partnering with the Trump administration to advance the America First law and order agenda, what does that mean? It means deporting millions of illegal aliens. It means stopping the encroachments of Sharia law. It means cracking down on big blue cities and big blue counties that have turned our urban centers into unlivable cesspools of crime, fraud, waste, abuse. It means advancing justice, law and order, standing up for our constitutional rights, and fighting against the left, which in my view wants to violate our deepest held principles of justice and law and order.
When you talk about suing the Biden administration, are there any particular lawsuits that you were a part of that particularly stand out to you, something you're proud of?
Yeah, look, I would say of my 46 lawsuits, about a quarter, maybe even a third of them were on border security and illegal immigration. The very first lawsuit I ever filed against Joe Biden was 2 days after he got sworn in January of 2021 to reverse the Biden administration's deportation freeze. We won that case within a week. Very proud of it, and I think my litigation and appellate and investigation work on border security and illegal immigration is what resulted in the National Border Patrol Council endorsing me to be the next Attorney General.
Let's talk a bit more about immigration. You said you want to work with the Trump administration. There's been a lot of talk about these mass deportations, and they've drawn both praise and scrutiny. Have the deportations been handled entirely correctly, in your view, over the past year?
I totally support what President Trump is doing. Borders Czar Tom Homan, Secretary Noem, and Attorney General Bondi have done to get rid of all of the illegal aliens that are here in this country. And so it's been handled, I think, the way that it ought to be handled. The problem that we're dealing with is that we're being resisted by an insurrectionist, lawless, rebellious left that is doing everything they can to incite violence, to incite resistance, to aid and abet ongoing violations of federal immigration law. And so, look, I think what we need now as a Texas Attorney General is someone who can lead the largest red state law firm in the nation to continue to crack down on these leftists and Democrats that want to flood our country with illegal aliens, and the violent liberals that are anti-cop, anti-police, and pro-illegal alien.
Those are some pretty strong words you use to describe the Democratic Party. Do you see yourself cooperating at all with anyone who may identify more, on the left if you were to be appointed?
I have a lot of friends who happen to be left of center or vote Democrat, but no, I offer no compromise with
the leadership class. So you don't see yourself working with them?
I offer no compromise to the leadership class of the Democratic Party. I believe that liberals, leftists, and the Democratic Party that harbors them are threats to the United States, are enemies of the United States Constitution. I believe that everything that they hold and want to advance in our state and our nation is antithetical to the United States Constitution, the Texas Constitution, the rule of law, and everything that we hold dear as a civilization. And so, no, I view the radical left as an existential enemy. And when I talk about being in a battle for the soul of our state and our nation, I am looking at the radical left as the primary enemy with which we are fighting.
We talked about mass deportations earlier. Of course, there's been a lot of talk about ICE operations. If you were elected Texas Attorney General, would you allow ICE operations in Texas without restriction?
100%. And that's already the law of the land right now. The problem that we have, once again, is in this state, we have Democrat elected officials and their troops on the ground that are all radical leftists, Antifa style, ACAB style, BLM style, insurrectionists that are actively resisting. You've got a whole list of district attorneys just this past week that have signed on to a list of those who will actively resist federal law enforcement when it comes to enforcing federal immigration law. I love ICE. I support ICE. By the way, I don't love the ice that's still on the ground, freezing north and northeast Texas, but I absolutely do love ICE. And I consider all the men and women involved in the mass deportation agenda to be my friends and allies. And as Attorney General, I welcome them.
You talked a bit earlier about how you served in the Paxton office. If elected, you would be the one succeeding him. Is there anything you would like to see changed about the office?
I think that we can go even harder in the right direction.
Way?
I think on all fronts. I think Paxton has been a tremendous Attorney General. I think that he has served our state well and effectively. I'm proud to have served as his deputy for 3 years. I think that Texas has been tremendously well served by his leadership. And as Paxton said in his statement endorsing me, one of the #1 questions he gets on the campaign trail is, Ken, who is going to replace you? I mean, this is going to be a major transition, and we can't risk taking our foot off the gas. And so what I offer is extremely high energy, aggressive, relentless focus on advancing that America First law and order agenda in partnership with the Trump administration.
So would it be correct in your view for me to say, if you're the next Attorney General, people shouldn't expect that much of a change over the current office?
Other than if people thought that Ken Paxton was aggressive in fighting the left and advancing the Constitution, I'm going to find a way to turn it up to 11.
How will you go about doing that? Are there any lawsuits you know of that you're going to file, turn it up to 11 in your view?
No, look, I'm not going to commit right here to filing certain lawsuits. What I can tell you is that Texans can look at my background, litigating, investigating, suing, defending, and appealing on all the major issues that Republicans in particular, conservatives care about, and they're going to see somebody who is fighting aggressively at all levels of the justice system to advance our conservative, Republican, and constitutional values. That's what I do. This is why President Trump said that Aaron Reitz is a true MAGA attorney and a warrior for the Constitution. And I've laid out, people can go to my website, aaronreitz.com, they can see what my priorities are, and they can look at the commitments that I have moving forward, but then have confidence that I'm going to get it done by looking at my record actually accomplishing those things.
Let's talk about the Trump administration. Say you're elected to office, the Trump administration comes out with a legal opinion that you disagree with. Yep. How would you respond?
Well, look, I imagine that there will be points of disagreement that happen to come up between me and this administration or Justice Department or whatever. That happens. People who share a core set of first principles can often disagree on certain things. But I think we'll handle that on a case-by-case basis. Nobody better suited to handle potential areas of disagreement than someone who has already served in the highest ranks of the Justice Department. If there's a potential hypothetical conflict that I can't foresee there being conflict, but if there is, yeah, let's get on a flight, let's fly up to the Oval Office, let's have a conversation with the President. I'll give you one example. You know, the state of Texas had for many, many years, for some insane reason, been giving the children of illegal aliens in-state tuition, which is unconscionable to me, totally offensive and wrong in every way. The Trump administration saw that this was something that was wrong. Why were we providing incentives and benefits to illegals? That doesn't make any sense. So what the Trump administration and the state of Texas did is they found a way to enter into litigation that then resulted in a settlement to achieve the desired result. Even though there was conflict, there was a mutually agreeable way to reach a beneficial resolution. So we're going to keep doing that sort of thing.
It's my understanding that Plyer versus Doe is still the law of the land. I believe that Supreme Court case decided in the 80s allows undocumented students to receive tuition.
Well, now
the state to pay for them.
Well, now Plyler versus Doe had to do with K through 12 public education benefits, but that holding, remember, was only a 5-4 decision in a court where the composition was much more liberal than it is today. I would like to see an overturning of Plyler versus Doe. Number one, it's only a 5-4 decision. The dissents provide all of the legal arguments and the groundwork to go ahead and overturn that case. Number two, the composition of the court is different. Number three, the appetite to cut off the gravy train of billions of dollars of benefits going to illegals, criminal lawbreakers, illegal aliens, I think is at a zenith right now. And so as Attorney General, I would like to spark the litigation that ultimately overturns Plyler versus Doe, a ridiculous Supreme Court decision begging to be overturned.
Would you work with the Trump administration to try and overturn that?
100%, absolutely. And nobody better suited than somebody who has actual litigation and appellate experience to take certain cases, litigate them strategically up to the U.S. Supreme Court. My opponents have no clue what they're doing in that regard. They're just trying to climb the next ladder. I actually know how to put together those strategic litigation and appellate troops in order to navigate this thing to get the victory in court.
How do you put together those appellate individuals?
Look, you surround yourself with the people who know how to get this done. I have spent my entire career commanding legal troops in legal combat to deliver legal victories. I know how to select them. I know the causes of action. I know the right theories to base our arguments on. And when you have somebody like me who has spent his entire career in legal combat throughout the justice system, I have surrounded myself by some of the most brilliant legal minds in the state and in the nation. My opponents don't have access to these networks. They don't even know what they're doing. They don't have the slightest clue. Whereas with me, I have been to war again and again and again, and my body is covered in these battle scars. So yeah, people are gonna want to get on the Aaron Reitz for Attorney General train, and we're gonna go to war, and we're gonna do a lot of things, not just overturn Plyler versus Doe.
I do want to ask you, you served in the Marine Corps for a little bit. What did you take away most from that experience?
Well, so I was proud to serve as an officer in the Marine Corps on active duty for 5 years. I deployed to the northern Helmand province of Afghanistan on our battalion's embedded training team. After my time on active duty, that's when I went to law school afterwards. I stayed in the reserve. I'm still a major in the reserve. I have to train quarterly so I can keep my beard, but my hairstyle takes care of itself. I don't have to worry about getting haircuts too much. But I'll tell you this, the biggest takeaway is I primarily went into the Marines. I swore my oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Now, back then, I primarily thought about those foreign enemies, right? 9/11 happened when I was in high school. That put me on a trajectory. I went to Afghanistan. I fought the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. And yes, while we have major foreign enemies to our Constitution, I have come to really appreciate that the primary threats to our Constitution today are the domestic enemies. And those are the enemies that I have been fighting for the past 20 years. I mean, those are the enemies that I'm going to go to war against as the next Attorney General.
I do want to ask you, last September, you wrote on social media that, quote, Islamification continues unabated in Texas, adding it is totally incompatible with American culture. Why do you say that?
Well, and not only that, but my very first commercial that we put out a couple weeks ago on broadcast and digital and all over the place, I made it very clear in that commercial. I opened by saying Islam is incompatible with Western civilization. Look, our Constitution is like what John Adams said. He said, quote, "This Constitution is for a moral and religious people and is wholly unsuited to the governance of any other." Our founding fathers could never have imagined in a million years having an influx of millions and millions upon people who are unassimilated, unassimilable, and whose core cultural and religious views are incompatible with Western civilization. Now,
First Amendment doesn't establish a freedom of religion, though. It does establish freedom of religion.
That's a separate issue. The First Amendment protects freedom of certain beliefs. It does not protect certain practices. And so if the Islamists want to come from their Muslim majority country and move into the United States and set up their Sharia enclaves, they can believe whatever they want, but they are not free to practice whatever they want. And so Sharia law is unconstitutional. It's not just antithetical to American civilization, although it is. It is also unconstitutional. The First Amendment does not protect Sharia law. That's very, very clear. Now, what am I going to do as Attorney General? I'm going to do what I've said on the campaign trail. I'm going to treat the network of Sharia law pushing Islamists like the feds treated the mafia in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, which is to say, we didn't get, how many mob bosses did we put behind bars for committing murder? Probably none, almost none. Why? Because they were sophisticated and they wiped their fingerprints off the weapon. But what we got them on were the financial crimes, the process crimes, RICO, racketeering, money laundering, drug and sex trafficking, all kinds of other, tax fraud. And so what we have now in Texas, and Texas is ground zero for the Islamification.
But what are people who identify with the, with the Muslim community doing wrong in your view?
Well, I think what they are doing is they are actively trying to set up parallel legal systems known as Sharia law. That is illegal, and they are laundering millions and millions of dollars from international and national sources. This is why I say. Do you have
an example of that?
This is why, absolutely, Epic City.
Can you name one?
Absolutely, Epic City. It's all over the place. It's about an hour and a half just west of where we are in Tyler. You can drive out to their compound. You can go on their website and see what they're up to. You can look at all the publications that they've put out. You can look at their network of C3s and C4s and political candidates and all their other money laundering operations. You can look at the active litigation that Attorney General Paxton is in right now. Paxton has already suing Epic City, alleging violations of state securities law. And so, look, we're going to double down on this. I'm going to smoke out the Islamists in Texas. What they are doing is a criminal enterprise, and they have access to international and national money and funding streams. This is exactly why Governor Abbott named both the Muslim Brotherhood and CARE, the Council for American Islamic Relations, correctly, I might add, as foreign terrorist organizations and transnational criminal organizations. Governor Abbott was exactly right to identify these networks as exactly what they are. And by naming them as such, he has unlocked a whole body of new laws that the Attorney General now has access to go on offense, to investigate them, to litigate them, to make referrals to federal law enforcement, to actively litigate himself, to go to war. These are invaders. They want to turn the West into something that it's not. Texas is the crown jewel of what they want to capture, and when I'm Attorney General, I'm not going to let it happen.
What would be your message to those in the Muslim community who may fear such comments will increase harmful speech against them?
I would say police your own. I understand, I know that...
Police your own? What do you mean?
Call them out. I'm not saying every single Muslim or every person who believes that Allah is the one true creator is... every single one of them is a terrorist. That's not what I'm saying. Of course, we all know colleagues or friends or neighbors or whatever who are patriotic, English-speaking, America-loving, westernized, assimilated, assimilable, like I said, patriotic people who happen to be Muslim. That's of course not who I'm talking about. Okay, I'm talking about the dark network of C3s, C4s, political candidates, shell companies, all of these things that are in a receipt of national and international money that are complicit in the Islamification and on the march to establish Sharia law in Texas. And so what I would say to those Muslim Americans who disagree or who do not want the sort of radicals to represent them, call them out. Call them out and separate yourselves. But sadly, I don't see that. I don't see that happening. And so in the meantime, we are going to go after their dark network, the Islamification network. It exists. Governor Abbott has identified them. Ken Paxton is already investigating and litigating them. And so to be asked this question as though I'm coming out of left field here, I think is a bit disingenuous because everyone is talking about this and current state leadership is actively engaged in combating it. My commitment as the next Attorney General is not only to continue what Paxton and Abbott have already started us on, but to really double down and actually get justice and to eject all of these Islamists and Sharia law from the state of Texas.
Now, as Attorney General, you would be responsible for an office of hundreds of employees. Why do you believe you have the experience to lead an agency of that size?
Well, it's thousands, actually. There are around 600 to 700 attorneys, and then a total staff count of all law enforcement, administrative support, investigators, attorneys, the whole 9 yards is nearly 4,000. It's one of the largest agencies in the state of Texas. The reason why I believe that I'm best suited to lead an agency of that size and that complexity is because I'm the only one with the record having that experience in executive leadership level functions. From the time I was even 23 years old and handed my first platoon, I was responsible for nearly 50 men. And then I became a captain. I got 100 men. Then when I was Ken Paxton's deputy, I had hundreds of staff. When I was Ted Cruz's chief, I had just over 100. When I was at the DOJ, I had thousands. There's only one person in this race that has very senior, high-level executive function, leadership, and experience. That's not only with sitting there in the corner office, but also accomplishing results, commanding those legal troops in legal combat to deliver legal victories. That's my entire record. I don't just have to believe it. I can look at my record, you could look at my record, and compare it to my opponents who have nothing of the sort and say, you know what, I trust Aaron Reitz to lead this agency.
The March 3rd primary is just over a month away. Is there anything we didn't ask you would like to add before that?
Yeah, well, I would also add that early voting is starting on February 17th. I think we're something like, almost 2 weeks away from that. And so at the end of the day, what Texans want as their next Attorney General is somebody who has been endorsed by Paxton and trusted by Trump because of my record, litigating, investigating, suing, defending, and appealing on all of the major issues that we've talked about here today and that we haven't even gotten to just because we haven't had time. I'm sure that we could keep talking. But this position is the Chief Legal Officer of Texas, and I'll leave you with this. We haven't had to choose an AG in over a decade, in an open primary, okay? And I always remind people that what is this job? Article 4, Section 22 of the Texas Constitution defines it. It says, quote, "The Attorney General shall represent the state of Texas in all courts and pleas." This is a legal, law enforcement, executive branch job. It is not a legislative job. And yet my opponents, many of whom we're gathering in a couple hours here in Tyler at a forum, all they ever talk about is their legislative. I worked on this bill. I did that bill. I introduced that amendment. I say, that's great. Are you running for re-election to the legislature? But because if not, I want to hear what your legal record is. And in this race, I'm the only one who has experience relevant to the job that I'm applying for. And so even if you don't like the things that I'm saying today, even if your listeners are like, I don't like that Aaron Reitz character, I'm the only one with the experience to be able to manage an agency not only of this size, but of this significant consequence for the state of Texas. So I think Aaron Reitz is your guy. People can learn more about me on my website, aaronreitz.com, AARONREITZ.com, or find me on social media, Aaron_Reitz, REITZ.
Republican candidate for Texas Attorney General Aaron Reitz. Mr. Reitz, we appreciate you coming here to Tyler today.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.